I'm Michael Sidgwick, he's Michael Hamflett. No need for preamble, there is no time in this video, just like there is no downtime in an AEW show when you attend it live. Number one, there is no downtime whatsoever. You are not allowed to piss at an AEW show. It's all very bang, bang, bang. Very energetic live experience, but little is allowed to register as a result.
I've praised AEW's formatting when watching on television over the last several months. It's felt as if things have slowed down just a little bit. There's been space for video packages and the like. You don't feel it live. The video packages feel shorter. The backstage segments feel absolutely minuscule, quite honestly. And as you say, especially when you're watching the other stuff on the taping cycle when it's just matches, God damn, do you know about it? Finish, lights down, entrance, finish, lights down, entrance. The point where you can't even sometimes see the match's losers being shunted off to one side as the next wrestlers are coming down. It's
no celebrations, no sadness, very little emotion.
It's Tony Khan paced, isn't it?
I love it.
It's the wrestling he clearly likes to see, going go, 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 go.
I love it, but very little is allowed to register on an emotional level. Number two, the spectacular height on certain aerial moves. Now, I don't know if this is the fault of production or what have you, but when I went to Dynamite and Rampage, and in fact Double or Nothing with my esteemed colleague Michael Hamflett in Las Vegas, I was wowed so much by Commander's rope walk and massive dive. More so than I am on television. I don't know if it's because of the camera cuts, I don't know if it's just because live wrestling is better, but he almost reached the rafters, or at least that's what it felt like to me.
They like on television, don't they? I always forget if it's high angle or low angle, but it's the cameraman on the bottom shooting upwards. And I think that's to get this idea that the wrestler's in the air for ages, the hang time.
Hang time.
JR would always talk about. But to your point, you actually recognise the hang time when you're watching it in person, because you can see that wrestler in the air for such a long time.
Is it because of the production? Should they mimic a more New Japan production on television so that the camera's still and you can see the full arc? What was the difference?
It's a live wrestling thing as much as anything else, but
it just looks better. Even the chops sound better.
Yeah, like AEW sign all of these wrestlers to try and create the best live wrestling experience possible. It's there to be enjoyed first and foremost live, so it stands to reason that you want the best high flyers, the best technical wrestlers and the like. And I think just seeing them get to do that in real life. It's not to make this video sound like a pitch to buy tickets to these shows, but they're the ones.
You should buy a ticket for these shows.
Like the big show's hands, they're the things you just need to see in real life.
Number three, all about that audio. I watch Dynamite every single week on Fight TV. No playback issues, no buffering, it's a great service, and I don't think the problems that are talked about endlessly online are limited to Fight. People can't decide whether it's Fight, whether it's the TBS feed, whatever, but there are certain times in a backstage segment where I'm watching Dynamite, and if I'm not scrambling to hear the first sentence before the audio actually picks it up, but I'm kind of straining to hear it anyway, because it's just not that loud. When we went to Dynamite on Wednesday, I was taken aback by the sheer volume of Juice Robinson's voice in a brilliant and really funny backstage promo segment. It felt like I was honestly being deafened because I trained myself to hear it on TV volume. When you see the backstage segments broadcast in an arena, it's so loud that you can't fathom how quiet they appear on the broadcast.
Yeah, and as a technical dunce, I don't understand the hows and whys of how on earth you would mic a ring, for example, or the ringside area. But it was very strange how some of the physical action was picked up as if you were listening to it through an earbud, through a headphone. There were certain points where you could hear a wrestler say, ow. There were certain chops, obviously loud chops are great and you're going to hear hand on flesh anywhere echoing throughout the arena. But some felt like they were being controlled directly down, as if somebody was holding a microphone to it. Sometimes it was super effective, but it looked tricky for the wrestlers to gauge where that was. Some steel step shots sounded like they were echoing again directly into your ear. Some you could barely make out. Same for the table spots at Double or Nothing, which was particularly notable in something like Anarchy in the Arena, where the sound and the light seem to travel at different paces depending on exactly what bit they actually were watching. I don't know the answer. I don't know what the fix is. We're so conditioned to WWE's crap production that can sometimes be over-production.
Yes,
so
mostly over.
Too perfect is just as big a problem.
Number four, the House of Black are more over than CM Punk. Now, this is obviously not exactly true. CM Punk has got a far superior drawing record to the House of Black and the individual members. This is not to bury CM Punk. We just thought it was really striking to see that at Dynamite on the Wednesday in the MGM Grand, we got the announcement, or the indirect announcement, that the first episode of Collision will premiere at the United Center. This, of course, got a big pop, and then we got big chance of CM Punk. But I wouldn't say it was dwarfed by the pop generated by the House of Black, but my God, that was the biggest pop in the entire building. This act is awesome. It's clearly the most over thing on the entire show. The match volume wasn't quite as high, which maybe is an indication that you need to get rid of those distracting lights. But the act is so over, I was taken aback by it.
Yeah, the Trios Championships obviously haven't really been given much storyline focus yet, but then a live experience at House of Black it's not so much a justification, but it's an explanation as to why you're sending them out there with this incredible look, this aesthetic, which, by the way, on a subjective level, I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's impossible not to get drawn into.
Live, it's so awesome.
Wrestling, again, as a live medium, allows for the most pantomime of ideas and biggest, broadest strokes. And the House of Black strokes might be quite broad, but why not reach out to the most people possible? Goth stuff isn't for everybody, but it's just impossible not to get enslaved by it live.
Number 5, why the Hardys will always get a second chance. Now, Jeff Hardy controversially returned to AEW about a couple of weeks ago, and Matt Hardy is not the most acclaimed AEW performer. I think people get bogged down in the contract stuff. It's not the high point of the show most weeks, if we are being brutally honest. So you might be thinking to yourself, with the potential risk in terms of his value and his longevity, and the fact that Matt Hardy, quite frankly, at least in terms of my social media curated timelines, isn't the most hot act on the show. Why will the Hardy Boys get chance after chance after chance after chance? The answer is they are so friggin' over, it's unbelievable. I would say third only to the Acclaimed and the House of Black. On Wednesday, at least, the Hardys got the most enormous reaction, and that was on a Rampage taping. Jeff Hardy nostalgia, in particular Michael Hamflett, will never die.
Delete your inhibitions and stand up and go.
Number 6, is Rampage and Ring of Honor worth the bother? Look, it's completely optional. You buy a ticket for AEW Dynamite. There is nothing preventing you from leaving the arena, and quite frankly, a lot of people took that option on the Wednesday taping we were at. So it feels like spoiled, entitled wrestling fan behavior to complain about the existence of Ring of Honor, but the problem is how Tony Khan tries to finesse Ring of Honor onto his AEW product when he's doing a combined taping. Now, the first hour of our taping was dedicated to Ring of Honor. Sufficiently warmed up the crowd. Brian Cage versus Willie Mack was awesome, but then you get 2 hours of Dynamite, after which you start to get a bit tired, and then you get an hour of Rampage, following which you get about 2 more hours or 1.5 more hours of ROH. Those are completely optional. If you're exhausted, go home. But the problem is that maybe these subdued Rampage atmospheres has something to do with the fact that on certain tapings, you are entering the 4th hour of action when we get to that broadcast.
Yeah, it's a shame because the anchor around Rampage's neck and the criticisms levied at Ring of Honor are as much as anything to do with the comparison to Dynamite. You shouldn't be inadvertently burying your own product with your other product, but there's something about watching that Dynamite graphic and the Dynamite ring skirt change to Rampage, and then the Rampage one change to Ring of Honor, that just feels all in the wrong order.
But just to put this into focus, okay, we arrived at 3, didn't have to. If you arrived on time for the actual tapings, the first match, you got there Western time at 4 p.m. At 9 o'clock, when we had to leave to create content, we ran into a fan who said that it was his choice between Katsuyori Shibata and food for his tea, for his dinner.
Yeah.
If your choice is between Shibata and food, there's only one choice, but by that time you're too knackered and you just take the wrong one that you'll regret instead. Number 7, MJF is still him. The man got probably the biggest reaction for a singles performer on the night. That AEW crowd is all about their trios and their stables, and people genuinely like to play along with his act. Now, earnest heel heat has been impossible since WWE and wrestling in general. WCW and ECW were actually the first to do it in the mainstream US. Stopped condescending the audience and started to fold in kayfabe and meta qualities and breaking the fourth wall. The good heels make you care about them. There's no such thing as a riot. There's no such thing as a stabbing. There's no longer any such thing as people throwing acid in classy Freddie Blassie's face. So the good heels are the ones that make you want to just boo them, because they do get under your skin, even if it's not particularly earnest. MJF definitely is a top heel because he did this rousing, insincere babyface speech and then turned heel, and then people were ultimately prepared to really play along with his act. He is still him. Hamflet, it was a joy to watch him cut a promo.
It really was, yeah. The boos are not just this thing that's being asked for by an audience that are willing to collaborate fully with MJF. He still, in our case, threw a drink on Tony Schiavone. He still talked.
That annoyed me. It's Tony Schiavone.
He still kind of infers that he will leave AEW, and he gets to play with this idea that their fans love the initials more than any individual wrestler, and it's just that, like, to be sort of critical of AEW is to be sacrilegious, basically. However, he was, in the Four Pillars build, the biggest star by orders of magnitude, and knew that, and was out there to sell a pay-per-view, and was out there to sell his opponents. And in order to do that, you kind of had to root for them. And I think it's going to be interesting to see MJF with a title now, with this Four Pillars program out of the way, because we're going to start lining up singles wrestlers again that will be asked to be bigger baby faces.
Number 8, all about merchandise, and is AEW pissing money down the drain potentially? This is the t-shirt company. This is the company that was built via Pro Wrestling Tees, albeit indirectly. This is the company launched in part by the Young Bucks, who made a killing on the independent circuit and transformed it as a result. It's therefore a bit weird that there is one stall with a limited range of merchandise.
You know what's really unappealing at a wrestling show? Queues. Or as American viewers would want to say, lines. Like, you get there, and this was the case at both Dynamite and at Double or Nothing, you were wondering what on earth this enormous queue, was it for the bar? Was it for entry into your seat? No, it turned out it was for t-shirts. The t-shirt company still is, to its fans, the t-shirt company, but when you arrive at the front of that incredibly long line, the longest line by far of any we saw in Las Vegas, there was, I think, a range of 6 or 7 t-shirts. What stuck out to me as somebody that maybe would have trapped myself to something because of access, because Pro Wrestling Tees isn't the easiest here in the UK, and obviously AEW has a lot of UK fans.
A lot of fees in the UK to get them delivered.
Stuck out to me that they're about to...
There is a shop AEW in the UK though.
Yeah,
but the range isn't quite there.
They're about to come to Wembley Stadium, and even back in 1992, there were stories about WWE, I think, having to send planes back to bring over more t-shirts. Such was the demand at Wembley that they'd realised was going to be the case. They can't fumble Wembley.
Number 9, WWE and AEW differ when changing tapings and matches. In what respect, Michael Hamflet?
Well, at WWE shows, they change the mat every single time now. So as the lights go down and the wrestler stands there in the ring looking weird, the production crew, and they're a crap production crew, change the cameras out. Yeah.
Not crap.
No, certainly not crap. They get it right every time. You know, back in the old pandemic, they were using that magic COVID spray. Not so much anymore. They've got mats out every time. It's obviously a company policy. In AEW, it's slightly different. And of course, the tell for this typically would be blood. We've often seen heavy juice in various matches that is then stuck around on the mat for afterwards. That's because they stick to their one canvas. When the production crew are required to change the turnbuckles, the ropes, the ring skirts, whatever, for Rampage, Ring of Honor, anything like that, they just simply cover the mat, do what they need to do, whether it be set out tables, and then uncover the mat again. Is it to make the show feel a bit more lived in, perhaps? Like the idea that you could get blood in the opener and then you could see it in the main event makes you realise you've seen a show, whereas WWE kind of just like everything to be perfect all the time. We don't know. But it's certainly quite a unique take on it when, now especially, WWE set the standard that most people like to follow.
Number 10, Tony Khan, live in person, is, and I'm going to be very kind here, delightfully, endearingly, a little bit weird. He comes out at the start of the Dynamite tapings, and he encourages you to stick around for the Rampage taping in his own, shall we say, inimitable way. He comes out, he asks Justin Roberts, who needs to work incidentally on his patter to rouse the audience between shows, and he asks, how much time do we have left, Justin? And Justin will say, 1 minute, Tony, so Tony knows how long he has got to say that we are having a great time here in Las Vegas.
Double or Nothing pre-show, you might have seen him wearing the Owen Hart Foundation hat.
Perfect.
This Trilby thing, that's the kind of perfect encapsulation of the Tony Khan experience. You look at it and you think, that's really odd, but the reasons for him wearing it were very nice, and just like his promotions of the shows, just completely earnest.
People love Tony Khan. Tony Khan loves to stamp his feet and rally the troops. And even if it is, the littlest bit weird, you just want to stamp your feet alongside the general manager. Have you ever experienced AEW live before? Pop a note in the comments below sharing your individual experiences. Will you buy a ticket for the next show? In Canada, someone has to. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, and subscribe to more content. I've been Michael Sidgwick.
I've been Michael Hamflett.
Yeah, I was going to do a bit, but we have no chemistry.
You'd think we would by now, wouldn't you?
Not on video. On podcasts, we do have chemistry. Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for more comfortable dadly boys. But thank you very much for joining us and persevering with us. We will see you soon.